When you sent in that question about greenish blue eyes, I have to say I was really intrigued. I mean, it's just not a color you come across every day, is it?
Definitely not. It's pretty unique.
So we're taking a deep dive into an excerpt. It's called Greenish Blue Eyes by Paul Elms Bacardi, a genetic explanation to really get to the bottom of what makes this particular eye color so, well, special.
And it's actually a really interesting mix of genetics and, believe it or not, even a little bit of physics.
Oh, now that's intriguing. I'm already hooked. So maybe let's just start with the absolute basics here. We know that ultimately eye color comes down to melanin, right?
Right.
But how does that actually work? Like, how does melanin actually create all the different eye colors we see?
Okay, so think of it this way. Melanin is like a paint palette for your eyes. And the more melanin you have, the darker your eye color will be. So lots of melanin, you get those rich brown eyes.
Makes sense.
But on the flip side, you have blue eyes, which actually have very little melanin at all.
Which is interesting because, we often talk about blue eyes being like the sky. Is that just a coincidence or is there actually a connection there?
It's not a coincidence at all. And this is where the physics comes in. It's all because of something called Rayleigh scattering.
Rayleigh scattering.
Rayleigh scattering. And basically what happens is when light hits the eye, the shorter blue wavelengths, they get scattered more in eyes that have less melanin.
Okay.
Which then makes them appear blue. And it's the exact same process, by the way, that makes the sky look blue.
Wow. No way. I never knew that. So cool. So we've got these different melanin levels. We've got light scattering. Where does green come in? Like, is there actually green pigment in our eyes, too?
That's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
So with green eyes, you still have a reduced amount of melanin, but not quite as little as blue eyes.
Okay.
And while melanin is, the main player here, it's not the only factor.
Oh.
We actually have multiple genes that all work together to influence our eye color.
Really? So it's not as simple as like one gene for brown eyes, one gene for blue eyes?
Nope, not that simple, unfortunately.
Wow.
It's more helpful to think of it like a puzzle.
Okay.
With each gene playing a specific part to make up the whole picture.
So how does that work?
Well, two of the most important genes, the ones that are really calling the shots, are called the OCA2 gene and the HERC2 gene.
Catchy names.
Right. These are the ones that are mainly in charge of how much melanin we actually produce.
Okay, so those are like the master controls then.
Exactly.
But then there are other genes involved too.
You got it. And those other genes, they do the fine-tuning.
Fine-tuning.
So, for instance, there are genes like SLC2T4A4 and TYR.
Okay.
And these genes can, add a touch of green, or they might even create those little rings of color that you sometimes see around the pupil.
Oh, wow.
You're adding all the detail.
Yeah. That's wild. So it really is complex then. No wonder eye color is so fascinating. It's amazing. Right. I mean, who would have thought that there's so much going on, like, literally beneath the surface of something like eye color? And it kind of makes you wonder, like, when did all these different colors even show up? Like, were there always blue eyes and green eyes?
Well, that is a great question. And you might be surprised to hear that blue eyes are actually a relatively new thing in the grand scheme of human history.
Oh, yay.
Yeah.
Huh. I always just kind of pictured, those early humans running around with these bright blue eyes.
I know. It's a classic image, isn't it?
Right.
But the truth is, scientists now believe that blue eyes probably didn't even appear until around 6,000 to 10,000 years ago, somewhere around there. And get this, they think it all started near the Black Sea.
The Black Sea.
The Black Sea.
Yeah.
And it seems like it was a single genetic mutation.
Oh, wow.
That's all it took.
So one person.
One person.
Wow.
This mutation happened, and it basically turned down the melanin production in the iris, and bam, blue eyes.
So everyone walking around today with blue eyes can trace it back to that one person?
That's what it looks like. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it is.
And what's even more interesting is that this mutation, it spread incredibly quickly.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And that kind of suggests that maybe, just maybe, it actually gave people some kind of advantage back then.
Interesting. Like an evolutionary advantage.
Exactly.
Huh. That's so cool.
Right. We don't know for sure, of course, but it's definitely a possibility. And then, of course, you have green eyes coming along a little bit later. Probably around, 4,000 to 6,000 years ago. Again, we don't know for sure. It could have been in Central Asia, maybe Northern Europe. Scientists are still trying to pinpoint the exact location.
So we've got blue eyes appearing around the Black Sea, and then a bit later, green eyes maybe popping up in those same areas. Were they just destined to collide and create greenish-blue.
Well, that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
Because now you've got migrations happening, right? Different groups of people are on the move, they're interacting, and they're, well,
We're having kids.
exactly, they're having kids. And those kids, they have the potential to inherit this whole mix of genes from their parents.
And sometimes they hit the jackpot and end up with those awesome greenish-blue eyes. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I thought we were saying this eye color is more common in certain parts of the world. So how does that work?
Well, take the Baltic Sea region, for example. You've got countries like Finland, Estonia, and then parts of Scandinavia and northern Germany. And those places already have a really high concentration of both blue eye genes and green eye genes.
How interesting.
So it kind of makes sense that you'd see more greenish blue eyes in those areas.
So it's like this region is like what do they call it? A melting pot for eye color genes.
Exactly.
But if that's the case, why is greenish blue still considered so rare?
Well, it really all comes down to those genes we were talking about. You need that perfect storm. You need to inherit just the right combo, and I mean just the right combo, of genes from both of your parents. And those genes, they have to work together in a very specific way to influence melanin production. It's all about finding that balance.
Wow. I mean, that really makes you realize how much goes into it. Like even the tiniest little differences that we see in eye color. There's all this stuff happening behind the scenes. And, one thing I've always found, there's something about greenish blue eyes that just really captivates people. Why do you think that is? What is it about that specific color?
Yeah, it's definitely got that wow factor.
Yeah.
And I think part of it, honestly, is the rarity. Humans, we love things that are unique, things that we don't see all the time.
Right.
It's just something so intriguing about it, something you don't encounter every day.
Totally. It's like finding a really, really cool flower, or like a rare bird. You have to stop and look.
Yes, exactly. And then on top of that, you've got all these cultural and historical connections that come into play too. I mean, throughout history, different cultures have given all sorts of meanings and beliefs to certain eye colors.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And it seems like greenish blue eyes, with that rare combination of colors, well, they've always had this kind of special allure about them.
Yeah, it's like the unicorn of eye colors.
Well, I think you've given us a lot to think about today. It's really amazing when you think about it. I mean, we've got melanin, light scattering, genetics, and even a little bit of history all mixed up to create this one super cool trait.
Absolutely. It just goes to show that there's always more than meets the eye, right?
Literally.
Literally. And who knows, maybe as time goes on and populations keep mixing and mingling, we might even see some totally new eye colors popping up. Whoa. Imagine that. That would be amazing. Maybe we'll have to do a whole new deep dive into a color that doesn't even exist yet. But until then, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of greenish blue eyes. It's been a blast. And keep those curiosity questions coming because you never know what we'll uncover next.